I used to be a national level volleyball player, and I remember one thing that my coach would always tell us when we were going up for hitting or when we were serving or whatever. And that mindset was to be mindfully aggressive. And that's something that has stuck with me more so recently for a very long period of time. That's been like a couple years since that happened. And honestly, it's like coming back to me, and I'm kind of realizing what he meant more and more as like I think about it and I write about it and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of want to share that with you. What this mindset means is essentially being present. And this is how he would explain it. It would be being present while being as aggressive as you could possibly be. So, like in a volleyball sense, it's hitting the ball as hard as you can, serving as hard as you physically possibly can muster. Because he would encourage us like hit the back wall if we could. Like if you don't know, like the volleyball court, it's like a court, it's like a rectangle type thing, net in the middle, and that's like somewhat high. I'm kind of short, so that's why I stopped playing, was because the net was going to raise once I got older. So you would throw the ball up, I would jump serve, so I was fancy. You would throw the ball up, you would jump, and then you would just launch it as hard as you could. And preferably, let's say the net's right here, the ball would go right over. It would curve down because it had something called top spin. So it would rotate forward, and because like air properties and all that kind of stuff, it would rotate down instead of going straight. And it would hit the other side of the court. You would score a point, all good and well. What he would tell us is if he thinks we couldn't have hit the back wall, we would be in trouble. So we would all serve as hard as we could, and we all got really good at serving hard. What I always remember is he would constantly tell us over and over and over to be mindful. Be mindful when we do it, but be aggressive. And as a young kid, I was a lot younger than I am now. I was like 14, 15. I don't think, yeah, I wasn't 16 then. I was like 14, 15. I was playing volleyball on like a national level, and I thought I knew everything, and I thought I was cool, and I thought I was smart and all that kind of stuff. And look, I have muscles and all that type of thing. What I failed to realize is I didn't know that you could be aggressive and mindful at the same time. And it's really taken a lot of time of like self-improvement and realization and all that kind of stuff to really get through with it. And just quick call to action, first link description, I have something called the creative mode protocol. It's completely free. It's basically on how to go from zero to like explosive muscle ups and your first handstand push-ups and all that kind of stuff, literally starting from zero, like you're barely able to do a dip now, literally from zero. Again, I explain like this type of mindset in detail and all this kind of thing inside of that program. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead. It took me like 40 hours to make, so it's not like low effort, like free lead magnet type thing or whatever. I have nothing to sell you. Obviously, there's stuff I do sell you, but I'm not going to be like forcing anything on you inside of there. How I want to kind of teach you how to get into this mode is there's a couple things. Something I've realized that's helped me is a breathing technique that I actually kind of got from Matthew's Lat. And I don't know what it's called. I just copy it. And it's essentially you go up to the bar, you get ready, and I'm going to be going like kind of back and forth a little bit. This next part is formatted a little bit weird, like in my head, but just bear with me. You essentially go up to the bar, grab the top of it, like let's say you're doing pull-ups, for example, head down, all that kind of stuff. And you have two types of your nervous system. Obviously, there's a bunch of subcomponents, but you have two types of your nervous system. You have parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. This is when you hear people talk about like meditation, gratitude, deep breathing. It's to relax, it's to chill out. If you were to breathe super shallow and you were to breathe super quickly, what do you think would happen? It would have the opposite effect, right? Because if we're trying to be calm, we breathe deeply, we breathe steadily, all that kind of stuff. If we're trying to be aggressive and we're trying to like kind of have an adrenaline or a cortisol spike, which is actually good in the sense of we're trying to lift the most amount of weight, maybe not good for health or whatever you want to determine, but maybe not good for that aspect, but we want to lift the most amount of weight. So that's what we're going to do. If you were to breathe fast, if you were to go, sorry if you got ear raped by the mic. You were to breathe like that, very hard and very fast, but before your set, look at Matthew's Lat. When he does any of his sets, literally just copy how he breathes. That's like the best piece of advice I can give you. Open up another tab right now, or like if you're on your phone, like do the thing where you swipe down, go to the search bar, type in Matthew's Lat, and like go to one of his shorts where he lifts something, watch him breathe, and then like come back to this. Do a short just so like the video doesn't close and all that kind of stuff. Do the short, don't get stuck in scrolling, and then like click the back arrow on that or whatever. You want to enter a sympathetic state. And the thing is, your cortisol is going to spike, your adrenaline is going to spike a little bit. You're going to get very aggressive. You're going to be very like, The whole point of this mindset is not to get into like the deadlift bro woo type of mentality. You're not trying to be aggressive to the point to where you're like Eric Bugenhagen and you're just ripping things off the floor, you're eating barbells. Like, that's not our goal. Our goal is to get you into the state to where you could do that, but you don't, because you're mindful enough to be present in the sense of, I'm not going to do this thing. Something that I think really does help is meditation, is staying present in the moment, being able to breathe deeply, being able to be calm, being able to be controlled like within your own head is going to help you a ton when it comes to the opposite end. So you don't want both extremes. You want like kind of the yin and the yang thing. And I don't know how that like applies to this situation, but you want both aspects is what I'm trying to say. And if you're able to do that, then this is going to be most effective. Something I do have to mention is beginners probably shouldn't be doing this. If you're not very strong, if you're not very fast, if you're not very explosive, whatever, you probably don't need to do this at this level, because one, it's very fatiguing, and two, like, you don't really need to amp up a ton before a set. Like, I remember when I was younger, I would do like 5 sets of 5 until failure, like on bench, for example, and like all of the sets I would hit failure, but I would still do 5 reps. Like, your ceiling for recovery and strength and all that kind of stuff is just so low that you're not very strong. Like, if you've been training for less than a year, for example, or like year and a half, maybe even 2 years in some cases, like, actually, I'm not going to say that joke. Never mind. I'm going to get canceled. You can imagine what I would say. Anyways, it's just not worth it for a beginner. It's cool to be able to do every once in a while and get into the habit. And beginners, honestly, are better at it than more advanced guys, because beginners are kind of like excited. They're amped up. They want to do better. The more advanced guys are more chill. They're not as like hyped up about the gym. They still like it, but it's more so like a part of life. It's like if you've been with your girlfriend for a long period of time, it's not so much like, oh my God, I love you and I want everything to do with you, like you're needy or whatever. But it's more so like, oh yeah, this is my girl and I love her very much. And you love her more than when you started. But at the same time, you're kind of used to them. You kind of get what I mean? For more advanced guys, when do you use this? So people who are pushing heavier weight, doing heavy sets, all that kind of stuff, who've been training for 2-3 years-ish. Something along those lines. A year seriously. So if you're a noob, you haven't been training seriously for a year. Just flat out. That's just 99% of cases you haven't been training seriously. I'm sorry, you're a beginner. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like most cases. Once you've been training seriously for around a year, and you've probably went through this period, a lot of guys tell me when I ask them how long they've been training, they're like, 3 years, but I was doing random stuff for the first 2.5 years. Like, you kind of get what I mean. I'm not going to keep rambling. When do you use this? I would only use this for very difficult sets or very important movements. So, for example, your first movement is probably the most important movement to you. Your weighted dips, for example. You would do this before you do your dips. And if you're doing like, there's a ton of nuance here, but if you're doing like straight sets, for example, like 4 sets of 8, for example, maybe the first set you don't do it just to really lock your technique in. And then the second, third, and fourth set you can do it. But if you have like a heavy top set and you've worked up to it and all that kind of stuff, kind of going like balls to the walls with like that type of thing. Trying to just get as much out of the set as possible because you want to progress as much as possible and you want the biggest stimulus with still a ton of fatigue, but you know you're going to be resting the next day or the day after or whatever. That's when you would use that. For your back off sets, you can use it for harder back off sets. For an example, if you have like a top set, you do 5 reps. Top set 5 reps with whatever percentage. Obviously, the percentage switches depending on where you are in your cycle, but this is the heaviest weight you've ever lifted in your life. You're a little bit scared. Like, you kind of get that feeling, you get nervous before lifting something you've never lifted before. Even stuff that like is approaching what you've lifted before, like you kind of get nervous, even if it's like a warm-up set. Like, you still have that nerves. It's like, oh, what if something goes wrong? Like, you kind of get what I mean. We all kind of have that to some degree, and we kind of have to modify that based on our own perspective. But anyways, what I want to tell you is you do the top set, you go, you push super hard. You rest, you chill, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be tiring. Your first back off set, your first 2 back off sets, if you're doing like 2 back off sets or 5 back off sets or 4 back off sets, sorry. So like you're doing 3 to 5 sets total. First 2 back off sets, depending on the percentage, probably aren't that hard if you're like doing 5 total, like 5 sets total. So 4 back off sets. If you're doing that, then First 2 sets aren't that difficult. So you probably don't have to do this technique for those 2 sets. Set 3 and set 4 of your back off, so the 5th set total, you're probably going to need it a little bit more because you're going to be more tired, you're going to be more fatigued, all that kind of stuff. That's when you would use this. If you're interested in the creative mode protocol, again, my free, I don't want to say product, but like free community / course / program / thread / call center calendar thing, that just join it. It'll take you to a page. All you have to do is just make an account. If you don't have one already, the website is called school.com. Look up creative mode protocol. It has a little emoji and the little guy with the face or whatever. It's literally me, but generated by AI. I thought it was hilarious. Go in, you answer the questions, and then I'll accept you when I get to it, essentially. So I'll accept you, and depending on like what you say, and if I think like I can give you advice, I'll just send you a little video like giving you advice or whatever. I'm not promising that. I've done that for a few people just because like I've been excited about the community releasing and all that kind of stuff. That's not like a guaranteed promise. But if you're joining like relatively soon to when the community is releasing, then it actually might be. So that's been everything. Keep doing the best of doing your best. Trust God. Signing off. I didn't hit stop.